Hey guys, it's Deconic, and in this one we are going to be covering the high budget build for the Frostbearers that I have been using to comfortably play T17s, Uber bosses, and any other content I have attempted. And as always, I'll be pointing out areas as we go on that you can potentially save on the cost to get started on this build ASAP. I had a few goals when creating this build coming in from the medium budget. The first and the biggest one was that I wanted to make it super comfortable with T17s. As someone who hasn't done so many T17s in the past, it was very important to me that if I was going to go big on investment, that at a minimum, I would be able to clear all content or just T17s in general without knowing the boss's mechanics specifically. That if I got hit by a stray ability that I was not expecting, I would not just end up dying and I wouldn't be scared of running out of portals. And the second goal was to make it as affordable as possible, because I know not everybody can play for as long as I can. So it would be very pointless to use something like a Mage Blood as an example. Though I have to say that I am personally impressed with the results, with my in-game character having spent about 130 divines. And a lot of that cost is honestly kind of trimmable, but we'll be going over how to do that in a bit. There are a couple of reasons you would want to make the switch from the medium budget to the high budget as soon as you can afford to. The biggest one is that it is much tankier than the medium budget, so if you're like me and you just hate dying, this is a godsend. It also has more than double the DPS of the medium budget when all the buffs like Val Haste are active. And we absolutely cannot forget about the comfort that comes with just playing a higher movement speed character in general. Quick reminder to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. The support goes a long way in helping the channel grow, and we are so close to 500 subs. Quick update on the crafting video for the medium budget. Since the high budget version also has a lot of crafting for niche gear, I decided to just make that video for both budgets, so I don't have to make two videos about crafting. That said, I will still try to get it out to you guys as quickly as possible. To start things off, let's break down the defensive layers we are currently using to become as tanky as we are. The first and biggest layer is with a new unique shield, Disfalling, which makes our chance to block hits lucky at the cost of 10% max attack and spell block. This means that whenever we take a hit, the game rolls our chance to block twice, and if we succeed either time, it uses that result and we successfully block. This interaction maths out to about 88% effective attack and spell block chance at 65% chance to block, which we still get about, I think it's 1% or 3% maximum chances to block spell damage in the build. So we get up to 90% chances to block spells. Because of this interaction, it makes it so we only have to mitigate 1 out of every 10 attacks or spells that land on our character. And because of this shield's interaction, we are able to utilize very strong defensive layers that wouldn't work if we got hits very often. But because they are designed around not getting hit often, they are insanely powerful for those moments when you do. And an example of these layers is the aspect of the crab. This aspect provides a 2% physical damage reduction buff per stack every half a second, up to a maximum of 12 stacks or 24% PDR after 6 seconds, which is then resets once you take physical damage and then starts stacking up again. Being a CI character, we are also immune to chaos damage, and we are also leveraging Flesh and Stone for the bonus damage reduction based on proximity to the enemy, as well as less physical damage taken while on full AS mastery, which we always will be on thanks to the block and minion leech. We are of course curse, ailment, corrupted blood, and stun immune. We are very resilient to bleeds and have a max res of 78 to 79 for some added protection against elemental damage. And as the last layer of defense, we also have our ward pool, which, while it's not huge, it does help prevent one-shots when those few hits do come in. Now that we understand the layers that are making up the defenses, we can go over how to transition from the medium budget to the high budget. Full disclosure though, because we are switching from life-based to CI, You will likely spend most of your time in this process just gathering gear and storing on the side until you are ready to make the complete switch. The first and most important piece for this setup is a Svalin with 15 spell block. Then you want to pick up an Unetor's Vow. Now this can be a pretty pricey amulet depending on the league state, but if you can, you should definitely get positive elemental res. But it's also not the end of the world if you don't get positive, as our suffixes give a lot of leeway for getting res elsewhere, as we don't have to worry about attributes or chaos res with those suffixes. Then next, you want to pick up an elegant hubris with coins, with Caspir or whatever it says. That grants us Supreme Ostentation Keystone, which would then make it so we can ignore attributes, but then we do get no bonuses, which means we're gonna have less increased energy shield because all our int is just useless. But that's where tattoos come in. Now, this is the point where you would want to save up for your big crafts, and this is realistically where you can also trim some money on your budget to save some divines here and there. The first and most important big craft to get out of the way is our Twilight Regalia Fractured +1 Spectre chest piece. The bulk of the craft costs comes from trying to recombine the +1 Spectre on a Twilight Regalia and then trying to fracture that. Now you can cut the cost of this by just fracturing it on a war space, like let's say Destroyer Regalia or even a Var Regalia or something. You don't get as much ES, but it doesn't cost nearly as much if you skip the whole recombining step. You do need the +1 Spectre Fractured, however, as we are going to be using mana reservation essences to fit in all of our auras. To craft this, you just need to spam Essence of Loathing to get decent resistances, and once you're happy with your suffixes, then you just craft suffixes. Suffixes cannot be changed, reforge defenses, and if you ever fill up prefixes at any point, you can use Eldritch Currency to just get rid of a prefix. Next up, you want to save for the second big craft, which is going to be the Aggressive Fractured Wand. Here, you can actually save a substantial amount of currency by just not opting to go for an aggressive wand and then just picking up a fractured minion damage or minion cast speed mod, and then fossil crafting for +1 all and minion skill gems. The biggest reason you want to go for aggressive is that it keeps your Frostbearers attacking enemies while you remain at a safer distance, even without you using Predator Signal. And this makes Clear feel a lot better because you're not going to be using Predator to command them while you're clearing trash mobs. Now for this craft, you want to use an eye level 83 wand if you're going for aggressive, or an eye level 86 if you're not using an aggressive base, and then 4-socket resonator with corroded, metallic, shuddering, and jagged fossils. And once you get your prefixes sorted, and your ideal prefixes are +1 all, +1 minion, and then minion damage, your prefix cannot be changed, reforge speed until you hit minion cast speed, and then you just hope you get an open suffix for a trigger craft. Next, you want to craft your gloves. As this is going to be our source of aspect of the crab, which is big for our defensive layer, you want to craft this just right. This should be a relatively cheap craft, however, as you're just going to be using essences of woes to fix your prefixes, and then you reforge your suffixes. Now, for the essences of woe for the prefix, the ideal result is you're going to have the max ES from the essence. You're going to have increased ES from spamming it, and then you're going to have one open prefix. It is important to have one open prefix so we can benchcraft minion damage. Then with your suffixes, you just want to lock your prefixes and reroll for whatever element you think you're missing in terms of resistance. And if you fill up your suffixes, feel free to use Eldritch Currency to annul, or you could just start over from scratch. Anyways, once you have your one open suffix and you have your other two suffixes with good resistances, you want to beastcraft with aspect of the crab with the Black Morrigan, which is what would get you the level 30 recipe versus the level 20. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you get your Black Morrigan and you don't craft the level 20, as that is, I believe the difference is 2 stacks of crab barrier, and that could easily be the difference between dying or not dying when you take a big physical damage hit. The glove craft, if done well, can potentially cost you less than 5 divines, but again, RNG is RNG, so you never know how much it's actually going to cost you. Next up are your boots. These are a piece that you can save a good chunk of money on when you're getting started, but eventually when you're trying to get more out of your build, you do want to invest in a +2 Spectre boot. So how you'd save money is just using movement speed essences until you get good energy shield on the prefixes. Then you lock them and you craft your suffixes. But then to get your Elder +2 Spectre boots, what you would want to do is you want to grab any good warlock. I think your warlock boots, the best ES boot base. You want to grab one with high quality. It will be pricier, but again, we're trying to get as much ES as we can, as much of a health pool as we can. Then you would want to exalt. You want to conquer exalt orbit. Any conquer exalted orb is fine, whichever is cheapest. Then you want to harvest reroll the influence until you land on Elder. Once you're on Elder, you want to spam, I believe it's Deafening Essence of Torments, which give you 60% chance to avoid shock. You spam that until you get +1 level to raise Spectre on the suffixes. And if you don't get any other Elder affixes, you want to lock your suffixes and then reforge influence, the more expensive one. This craft would then reforge your prefixes to then slap on an Elder prefix. Then all you want to do at this point is Orb of Dominance, it's I believe, to try to elevate your +2 Spectres. It's a 50-50 here. And then if you hit your +2 Spectre, if you hit your Spectres, it becomes +2. Your suffixes are more or less done. If you want to add a suffix, you can use Reforge. I'll go over this in more detail in the video that's coming, but in any case, now that your suffixes are done, just lock them, Reforge defense, and then build up your movement speed, and you're done. If you have all of the mentioned components so far, this should be the earliest you can consider switching. But just remember that this is still early and all your gear and jewels would still be focused on your life variant. But it is possible, though I do not recommend it. You will just be squishier for it and there might be some things that are just off. But if you do, you can make it work. Everything from here though is pretty straightforward. You just get all the remaining pieces that you need to buy. Most of it is unique jewels or cluster jewels that you can either harvest, craft, or buy off trade. Just remember to go to town before you respec your tree, just so you don't lose your Spectre or risk exploding your warlord who turns to a corpse or anything of the sort. You never know when it comes to respecing. So I always just say go to town, make sure you're safe, and then do it. That about covers everything you need to know to get going. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the build as much as I did. It was a genuine challenge making it, but I'm super proud of the result. I was especially surprised to see just how well it held up against Uber bosses. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and maybe even consider subscribing. And I mean, with all that said, thank you for watching.